Now that the 118th Congress is officially in session, the question isn't just how Republicans will govern, but do they want to? I'm going to put that question to the Republican Congressman Andrew Garbarino of New York. He was a member of the Homeland Security and Small Business Committees in the last Congress. He's also the chair of the Climate Solutions Caucus and a member of the Problem Solvers Caucus. Congressman, good to see you. Thank you for being with us this morning. Exhausting time for the country and exhausting time for Republicans this last week. We're starting this Congress off with a bit of a big stain in the middle of our shirts.
Well, we've a speaker, and I think everybody's excited, and Congress can now get to the work that the American people elected them to do. So I think, yes, it took 15 votes, but I'm excited to finally say Speaker Kevin McCarthy. And, I think after this week, it took a couple extra days than normal. But I think the Republican Party is a little more unified now. It like I said, it took a little longer. But now we know how to work together and move things forward. That's going to be very helpful, especially this Congress with such a tight majority for the important bills to come over the next 2 years.
So let's talk about that. For most of the week, the 14 or 13 votes, there were 20 people who either voted present, voted for someone else, or didn't vote for McCarthy versus the 215 or 212 who did. Then it came down to 6 people. So the bottom line is the recalcitrant group in the Republican Party is very small. Democrats also had a recalcitrant group that didn't want to go along with a lot of what Nancy Pelosi had to say. The margins were exactly the same in the last Congress. What do you do about this? Are you worried about how damaging this small group of Congress members can be over the course of the next 2 years as you and the Problem Solvers Caucus are trying to come up with bipartisan solutions that can actually help the American people?
Well, I think it's not just these 6 members. It's any 5 members in the Republican conference can work together to make sure that a bill that they don't think is good for their constituents, they don't think is good for their district, does not pass. I think this is actually, is going to be good. You have members in the Republican conference that represent districts Biden won by over 10 points. You have members of the Republican conference that Trump won by over 40 points. So, it's a big tent, this conference, and we're going to need to work together because we have such a tight majority. I think that's going to be better. I think that's going to be better for the country because the bills that we pass won't be extreme. And at the end of the day, we're going to need to work with the Democratic Senate and the Democratic president to pass any legislation to become law. So the bills, we're going to have to work in a bipartisan way. But first, the Republican conference is going to need to work together. And finally, we did that last night when we elected Kevin McCarthy Speaker.
I think you make an interesting point there, that this does force a degree of bipartisanship. That's never going to be a bad thing. However, last night on Fox News, Matt Gaetz had said, and he was seeming to be implying that he was going to vote for McCarthy, even though he didn't at any point. He said, I'm running out of things to ask for, which suggests that McCarthy made more concessions. You didn't vote on the rules package last night. I'm very appreciative, by the way, that you're up with me at this hour. You didn't vote on the rules package last night. That's going to happen on Monday. Do you know what McCarthy gave up to get the present votes of the 6 members last night?
The only thing that was changed in the rules package from what was presented and agreed to by the conference over the weekend on, I think it was actually New Year's Eve, was that the motion to vacate rule that went from needed to be put forward by 5 members was changed down to 1. And at the end of the day, Speaker McCarthy thought that was fine. It was 1 vote before Speaker Pelosi changed the rule a couple of years ago. So it just goes back to the way the rule originally was. Other than that, not much else was changed in the rules package. Actually, nothing was changed in the rules package compared to what we agreed on before the
Except
conference.
There might have been some committee memberships, right, that are affected by that.
Well, no, I think at the end of the day, the discussions were about, having members of the Freedom Caucus, having members of Main Street Caucus, having members of the Tuesday Group, having members of Problem Solvers, all, list different committees on their committee request. At the end of the day, the Speaker can't bind the steering committee. I'm also a member of the steering committee. I represent New York's region on the steering committee, and every member of that steering committee has their own vote to say what members get on what committees. So the speaker couldn't promise gavels away. He couldn't promise actual committee spots away. That still all has to go through regular order, which is through the steering committee, which our meetings start this week on Monday.
There were a lot of people who were watching this with either glee or looking at it like it was a clown car. But for people like you, moderate Republicans, members of the Problem Solvers Caucus, were you starting to get annoyed by the fact that this small group of people seems to be dictating your agenda when guys like you were just looking to solve problems and move on?
Yeah, frustrations did run high this week. I know you showed the clip of Mike Rogers, who's going to be the chair of the House Armed Services Committee. But at the end of the day, I think this was healthy because we're going to need to have these discussions for a lot more. We got the debt ceiling coming up. We have budget votes coming up. We have the NDAA. I'm pushing for 9/11 healthcare coverage. We have a lot of things that are going to be coming up that we need 218 votes for. So I think this showed us that we need to start communicating as a conference a lot sooner than we did to make sure everybody's on the same page. So I think it was actually at the end of the day going to be healthy for us, and I think everybody's excited to see what Speaker McCarthy is going to do for us.
I'm worried about one thing, and that is the debt ceiling discussion, both government funding and debt ceiling discussions. Every year when we've talked about not increasing the debt ceiling, there's been this fear that if you don't do that, bond prices fall, interest rates go up, and you have sorts of economic problems. We're now in a place where we've got really high interest rates, and we're worried about a recession in this year. The debt ceiling game might be more dangerous this year than it's been for the last 15 years.
Yeah, listen, I don't think anybody wants us to default on our debt. That's definitely something we can't do as the major player in the entire world. So nobody in the conference yet in conference discussions have said we need to not lift the debt ceiling. Nobody said we're going to not lift the debt ceiling. So the focus is to make sure that the debt ceiling is lifted. But as Kevin McCarthy, the new speaker, said, he goes, I'm just not going to give a blank check. So those discussions, I believe, are going to start amongst the president, Senator Schumer, and now Speaker McCarthy.
Congressman, I am appreciative. You had as late a night as I did. Maybe yours was even later. So I appreciate you joining us this morning. Always good to see you. The Republican Congressman Andrew Garbarino of New York.